so impressed. And I'm also impressed because then down the stage, your eyes can't move from a very beautiful speaker. And our next speaker.
What?
Wow.
Well, I tell you, we have another speaker with a long list of credentials.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed Ian's. That was fantastic. As a new, somebody investigating this opportunity, like most of you out there today, that type of presentation was very helpful to me. Now, our next speaker, would you like to give an introduction?
I will introduce our next speaker, and today she's very charming in a very beautiful saree, and I will use Chinese first. 那接下来我们要介绍的我们的下一位 speaker 呢，她今天穿着非常非常美丽的民族服饰纱丽来到我们的现场，非常非常的美。那么她呢也有非常重要的，在今天的我们的演讲之中，她有众多的 title。那我在这里呢要给大家来简单的介绍一下，她呢是喜马拉雅研究所及金融科技风暴公司的创办人。堪称印度区块链的第一人，他就是喜马拉雅研究所创办人兼首席执行官，以及以太坊基金的印度合伙人。So, do you know who she is?
Well, great. We'll do the English version of that now. I'd like to introduce Arifa Khan. And she is an Indian partner of Arifa, and she is the CEO and founder of GD Camp with the grand vision to disrupt the global capital markets of $85 trillion. Wow, that is a huge vision. But she is a mathematician and an ITT graduate, and she is an ex-investment banker with the Credit Suisse and UBC and a financial whiz. She has an MBA from the Walton School in the United States.
Wow. Let's warmly welcome Arifa Khan.
Thank you, Hybrid Block, for having me here in the great gambling city of Macau. I congratulate each one of you who has gathered here to become the pioneers and acquire knowledge that will give you advantage to play in this crypto economy. So I invite you to become the greatest gamblers of the next few decades or possibly the century by playing in crypto economy. So you have seen the mania that has rocked us in 2017, which I call the annus mirabilis for blockchain technology. So 2017 was the year when blockchain went mainstream, and it all began in January at the World Economic Forum, when the world premiers got to hear of the blockchain technology for the first time, and they went back to their countries determined that they have to do something about it, even if it is to create headlines and to make press releases. And the phenomena started since then, and over the year, as you know, there have been hundreds of ICOs and over $3 billion have been raised through the mechanism of initial coin offering, and lots of billionaires were made, lots of superstars were made, lots of winners of tomorrow possibly have embarked on their journey of disrupting everything that we have known in the past. So one of the examples is Winklevoss twins, who invested $10 million, and just yesterday their $10 million investment became $1 billion. So when I invite you to become gamblers, what I mean is not investing in currencies to multiply your returns, Because when you have an option to play a blackjack in the casino downstairs, or you have an option to become the owner of the casino itself, or you have an option of playing even bigger, of becoming a part of creating this future, what would you choose? That's like Aladdin asking the genie for 3 wishes and asking for a chocolate, right? When you can have anything. So, looking at the history of Bitcoin and blockchain, it all started with the revolutionary phenomena of Bitcoin in 2008, and Bitcoin was just one play on privatization of money. Of course, it disrupted the concept of money, which has been there for 5,000 years and nobody had touched it and no one had redefined money. It was for the first time Satoshi Nakamoto combined the two concepts of both privatization and decentralization of money, because privatization of money had been solved a few decades earlier through DigiCash and even PayPal, but decentralization was something that had not been solved, and that is what he brought to the market for the first time. And today you see Bitcoin's market cap is possibly around $200 billion out of the entire crypto economy, which is $300 billion, which tells you the disruptive potential that Bitcoin brought, even if it is just a play on the currency. And then you had, in 2014, Ethereum, which went further than Satoshi Nakamoto, and it was a play on the future of computing itself. So Vitalik Buterin took a bet that the future of computing is going to be smart contracts, and smart contracts being a mechanism where you define business agreements or any logic to happen between two transactions, and you can transfer this logic to a computer which can verify the performance of that contract in an automated fashion. So this play on the future of computing has had such a tremendous success that most of the transactions today on the world blockchain are on Ethereum. Ethereum actually surpassed Bitcoin transactions sometime during the middle of this year. It was in May when we were actually having the Ethereum India Summit in India, and Vitalik Buterin told me that was the day Ethereum exceeded the transactions of Bitcoin. And why did it exceed the transactions of Bitcoin, and why is it the most successful platform? Because it is the base layer or the architecture on which most of blockchain applications are being built, if not all. So it was a foundational layer on which blockchain technology could be used by the world institutions and also the new innovators and disruptors. Today, of course, there have been improvements over Ethereum. We are now talking of alternative protocols which increase the scalability, performance metrics, and so on. We are hearing of a lot of alternative protocols that even claim to be superior to Ethereum. We are hearing IOTA, we are hearing Tangle, we are hearing Hashgraph, we are hearing EOS, and lots of alternative protocols for consensus mechanisms which offer to perform better than Ethereum and which are more suited for decentralized institutions that are performing processes, millions of processes like Visa, NASDAQ, PayPal, and so on. So when I first shared my white paper with Vitalik, he didn't give me any feedback. He quietly sat down and created a new protocol called Plasma. And Plasma, Vitalik says, is the most suitable protocol for things like decentralized exchanges and for any advanced, sophisticated blockchain applications that require millions of transactions per second. And when I met him at DevCon 3, that is what he was advising me too. He was giving me a few protocol alternatives on how to do decentralized exchanges, and he told me to build it on Plasma. Well, now coming to why we are doing what we are doing. We are creating the world's first stock exchange solution on the blockchain, and it will be powered by smart contracts and artificial intelligence, and there will be no intermediaries. You don't need to go to an investment bank, and you don't need to go to a stock exchange to list your securities. And why did I choose capital markets when I wanted to create a blockchain application? So here is a perspective on the world's money. At the bottom you have Bill Gates' net worth, which is around $50 billion, and Bitcoin today is probably around $200 billion. All cryptocurrencies put together $300 billion, because you see this slide is dynamic. Every single day there is $50 billion of addition. Amazon's valuation $400 billion, Apple 700, entire USD in circulation is $1.5 trillion. So if you look at Bitcoin, which is a play on currency, Bitcoin $300 billion versus USD in circulation $1.5 trillion. And then you have gold market cap $8 trillion, physical money, all of currencies put together like renminbi, US dollar, Indian rupee, whatever. You have $31 trillion. And then you have stock markets, which is actually $85 trillion, not 66. And then you have all money. So if you want to be best positioned for the future, and if you want to be the winner of tomorrow, you have to play in the economy that is broad. That is why Ethereum is a winner today, because it's a broad infrastructure, it's a generic protocol, and it is the foundational layer for everything that can be built on top. So let's say you're picking an industry, you will think of some industries which have vast reach, like food, for medicine, health, these kind of things everybody needs. But if you look at capital markets, it is an all-encompassing industry. Like every single industry you think of comes under capital markets, because every single industry you have capital raising, and that industry is a part of the capital markets industry, which is why capital markets is close to all the money in the world. So it is the biggest industry. And guess who controls this capital markets industry? It is the traditional incumbents, which is the banks and financial institutions, and the big centralized intermediaries who are at the very center of attack by the crypto economy, Bitcoin, and all of us innovators gathered here. So obviously and naturally, these incumbents are very resistant, very threatened, very rattled by the developments that are happening, because they know that Bitcoin is not Bitcoin alone. Bitcoin has the power to bring down these huge mountains of financial institutions. So you look at all the ICOs that have happened in the past year. Some of them are greater than $200 million each, and I have spoken to some of those CEOs. For example, I've spoken to Bancor CEO and EOS CEO. Both of them are superstar ICOs which raised more than $200 million each. And there were some other very interesting ones on distributed computing and distributed storage and so on. But you didn't see anything as disruptive as Bitcoin and Ethereum itself. And why is that the case? I thought that was so because our crypto founders or our blockchain innovators did not have sufficient knowledge about this thousands of year old industry of finance and capital markets. And then I was surprised. In September, I was in Shanghai for the Global Annual Blockchain Summit, and I met Nick Szabo. I heard his talk first. He was the first person I heard speak about financial smart contracts. And then I was very shocked. I thought, I was the first one, and I was the first one to come up with this concept and so on, and then here was Nick Szabo talking. But he's the father of smart contracts, so that didn't surprise me. So when I talked to him about my idea, he said, wow, this is interesting, and possibly we could work together. So all of these ICOs have only gone after small applications, and today CryptoKitties is in the news, and it's just an entertainment app which is making lots of millions of transactions and so on. We're doing stuff that is interesting to us because there's a new economy and there's a gold rush kind of a thing and everyone is euphoric. it's like gambling in the casino. But here is a real huge opportunity that we are all failing to see. We are just at the nascency of this revolution that is going to transform everything in the next 100 years to come. It may take even less than a decade. And within a few years or decades, we are going to see the last industry that has resisted disruption. So if you see any industry, and if you take the top 10 winners, the names keep churning. The next decade, you don't see the same names, right? So Amazon, PayPal, Twitter, Facebook, all these are winners of the past decade. And the next generation, the winners are going to be new players. But if you look at banking and financial sector, all the names are the same because they have not been disrupted for centuries. And now is the time for them to be disrupted. And Satoshi Nakamoto has to be given credit for this power, which is why there is so much attempts to throttle Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, to ban, to call it illegal, and threaten with all sorts of things. So what do we offer? What we offer is, in the old world, capital moved according to some preferences and according to the rules of the old world, because old world was censored, was monitored, and was managed by these incumbents and large institutions. But here, for the first time, we have the beauty and the power of this magical technology, which is decentralized, which is trustless, which is peer-to-peer, and which is frictionless. And you combine this with artificial intelligence to do very simple tasks like taking orders and averaging those orders, which is what investment banks do in a process of IPO. I have been an ex-investment banker myself. You have the next generation system that is error-proof and that will be utopian and libertarian, because you are giving the power of raising capital to every single industry, not just blockchain industry. You're giving power to a manufacturer, a pharmaceutical company, or a tours company, or a service provider. You're giving every single company in the world the power to raise capital with the ease and convenience of blockchain, but they're able to offer something tangible, which is real securities, which is stocks and bonds, and not tokens, which don't represent anything. If you read the legalese of a white paper, some of the white papers almost say that you get this token which means nothing and we are not responsible for anything at all. But there are millions and billions of companies out there which would want to raise capital, offering securities which mean official representation of capital and share in the company. So what is the problem we are solving? So this industry has been safeguarded for centuries, and there is a huge opacity, and I came up with this theory of opacity, which means that the more the opacity of an industry or a system, the more there are intermediaries and the more they are interested in perpetuating that opacity, because it helps them keep the fees and the rent-seeking behavior high, and they take away the surplus from the buyers and the sellers. So the solution to get rid of the fees and for the betterment of society is to directly attack this opacity. And that means you have to introduce transparency and you have to disintermediate the process. That's the crux. So you hear a lot of banks and financial institutions and exchanges talk about blockchain. In fact, they were the first ones to say we have invested in blockchain. This was way before even Ethereum was formed. 2012, NASDAQ invested $30 million in a company called Chain and so on. So they understood the blockchain technology, but they have done nothing with it. Because if they really were to apply cryptography and blockchain in its true spirit and sense, they would have no reason to stay where they are. So, which falls on us, crypto innovators, to disintermediate, because they are not going to go out themselves. They are not going to render themselves redundant. So the solution is to attack opacity with blockchain. So every single company in the world, so these are a bunch of crypto fanatics, but if you ask entrepreneurs and businesses, How many of you want to list your company on a stock exchange? Every single hand will go up because every single company's dream is to go public. And every time a company goes public, they have to pay up to 10% of fees to an investment bank. And the investment bank, all it did was to manage the process. And the investors were coming because of the merit of the company, not because of the merit of the investment bank, or they were on the contact database of the investment bank. And just for managing this process, every single company, no matter how big or small, they had to pay 10%. And this was the fate of even Facebook and Google. And even the current IPO, which is Saudi Aramco, which is $2 trillion IPO. Imagine how much fees they would have to pay if they have to pay 10% to the investment bank. So, not surprisingly, the top 10 investment banks made $100 billion in the past 12 months, which is more than the net worth of Bill Gates, just to give you a perspective. And in just 1 year. So imagine how much all the banks are making for redundant processes which are no longer required in this age of the technology stack, where smart contracts can do everything, where you can automate every single process, and you can actually put artificial intelligence on top to make it better, to use machine learning for what the investment banks do. So here are the problems that you hear in the media. This is bad press for all the investment banks, and these are institutions like OECD saying banks collude and they indulge in unfair and monopolistic trade practices, which is all bad for business and the economy. And the Wall Street bullies. They have all been making statements that Bitcoin is bad, and clandestinely they are also investing in Bitcoin for their clients and for themselves and so on. But it is not very smart of them to just look at Bitcoin. So the complete potential of blockchain is going past them, and they are blind-eyed to this potential of blockchain, because they might be making patents and so on, and they're not using it, and that gives you the proof that banks do not intend to make anything with true blockchain. The solution? Decentralized global capital markets platform, which is a smart contract platform which enables anyone in the world to do initial securities offering. We're going to call it initial scrip offering, which is a crypto security, which is a token which represents a stock or a bond, and you will be able to access investors around the world and with the ease of an ICO, but with the beauty of a security and the legality of a security and the confidence and comfort for the investor. So technology should serve society and make life better for all. I believe blockchain is not for implementing distributed consensus in permission ledgers, in private consortiums, and for forming grand alliances, which is nothing but another way of forming centralized power hubs. I believe blockchain is for re-architecting businesses. Blockchain is for disintermediating industries' processes, and blockchain is for putting the power of decentralization in the hands of the common man. That was the spirit of Satoshi Nakamoto. So tell me, how many ICOs have you seen which are adhering to the spirit of Satoshi Nakamoto? And how many are trying to go beyond this? So in my view, Ethereum is the only one which went beyond Bitcoin's scope, and that's why it's successful. And we are yet to see all these applications which will come in the next decade. So I'm telling you, you are still at the very nascency. You are seeing only the iceberg of what is the promise of the crypto economy. And then suddenly we have seen cryptocurrencies take over the popular imagination, and cryptocurrencies are a completely independent use case of blockchain technology. And if they have seen so much success to completely disrupt the traditional venture capital, imagine what is in store for the capital markets industry and for the asset management industry. So here is a pictorial representation. I'm an artist, I drew this myself. So on one side you have issuers, means companies, governments, individuals, charities, anyone that wants to raise capital either by debt or by equity, so that is bonds or securities. On the other side you have investors, who could be institutional investors, who could be retail investors, who could be high net worth individuals, who could be governments, who could be just about any, or they could be anonymous Bitcoin holders. And you have these two matched just by a smart contract platform, and these will be run with the help of oracles. And we have these fiat to crypto exchanges to convert the fundraising that these companies are doing. So you have a seamless automated mechanism. Of course, this is not easy. It's a very complicated ecosystem to produce and a protocol to build. But this will be the next generation base layer for every single innovation and disruption to come in the finance industry and the capital markets and the securities industry. So by terms of impact, this would be perhaps far bigger in volume and value transacted than what we have currently on Ethereum. Because as you saw, the crypto economy is 300 billion and the securities industry is $80 trillion. So let's wake up to the potential, the huge potential that's before us. And I believe I'm the first one to take a shot at this. And I wrote this white paper in July, and I've had the validation of Nick Szabo and Vitalik Buterin and several other CEOs of the biggest ICOs we have seen. And it will be a two-sided marketplace. So though initially my target would be to solve the problem of initial public offering for any company on a crypto platform, I would also later make it a two-sided exchange to buy and sell these securities. So we are not targeting selling Apple securities there right now, but if a new company wants to come and list their securities on a crypto platform, their securities you'll be able to buy and sell on this platform. So it will be a two-sided market exchange. So this is the ultimate sophisticated blockchain application that has not yet been built. So far we have only seen cryptocurrency exchanges where you can convert fiat to crypto or crypto to crypto. You have not seen real securities being exchanged because there's a lot of sophisticated aspects involved, including legal compliance, geographical borders, and also the crypto protocols and scalability and throughput and security, anonymity, and so on. So we want to make smart contracts do the real world IPOs, and that would be really achieving the promise of Ethereum or the smart contract founder Nick Szabo, because he believes smart contracts are the future of law or the future of computing. So imagine if everything we know in the world, from any business agreement to any contract, being converted into a smart contract and being run by a bunch of machines using a cryptographic protocol much more reliably and without the vested interests and the conflicts of the centralized institution, which introduces human error, and there you have to threaten the institutions with law enforcement if you have to trust them. So we want to make it a trust minimized and a trustless ecosystem, and this is Nick Szabo's biggest promise. He's working on financial smart contracts too, and he's the only other person in the world that I know of who is thinking of such a big vision. And financial smart contracts are going to be the really next big thing, much bigger than even Bitcoin and Ethereum. So why do we need this? Because decentralization removes the need for these centralized intermediaries like clearing and settlement, like custodians, like depositories, these exchanges, investment banks, and we don't need to pay the fees. And there's a direct power in the hands of the wealth creator, which is the entrepreneur, to raise capital from anybody from anywhere in the world. And similarly, there is direct power in the hands of the capitalist to invest in anyone, anywhere in the world. So what can such a value exchange platform do? It can do everything that every single fintech platform that we have seen so far. It can be a Kickstarter, it can be an online lending platform, it can be a stock exchange, it can be a NASDAQ, and it can be an IPO platform, and it can be even an equity crowdfunding, or it can be an assurance contract where people in the society can get together and make insurance, and it will be a self-insured thing. So basically it's a value exchange contract where you can exchange any sort of value, where you can tokenize securities. So now, after I wrote my white paper, I have definitely seen a lot of ICOs who are trying to play in the same industry, but they're all trying to digitize the existing securities. So it's a roundabout fashion, and it's an intermediate step towards this ultimate solution. And another thing is, they are all trying to still be friends with banks and financial institutions and exchanges because they want them as their clients. In fact, I have shunned advances by national stock exchanges who want to engage in a dialogue with me, because I am 100% convinced that incumbents and established institutions have nothing to offer when you're wanting to disrupt them. They can only harm your vision, or they can try to dilute and so on, but there's no benefit from them. So I have refused meetings with them, because if they understood disruption, they would be doing it themselves. So we are the global borderless NASDAQ on blockchain with no fees, because obviously it will be funded by an initial coin offering sometime in 2018. And we will first try to build the platform and the protocol without revealing it to the world. So we're looking for a private investment of $5 to $10 million so that we can build the platform before we do the big public ICO. So say no to brokerage houses, say no to custodians, say no to stock exchanges, say no to Goldman Sachs. All you need is just one blockchain platform, and you have the power, similar to having a Bitcoin in your hand, which you can send to anybody, anywhere, anytime. You can issue your securities, and you can distribute it to whoever. You can value your securities the way you want it, and it is up to the investors to decide and invest in you. There is no middleman telling you what to do, when to do, and how to do it. So in terms of impact, I believe this is the ICO with the biggest impact till date, because surprisingly to my shock, none of the 1,000 cryptocurrencies and none of the hundreds of ICOs we have seen in the past have aimed at capital markets industry or the securities industry. Who knows the reasons? So this would be a foundational layer, just like Ethereum is a foundational layer for the future blockchain applications. This would be a foundational layer or an app store for a lot of blockchain developers to build applications for the asset management industry, for traders, for getting returns, and so on. So the next thing to be disrupted after this is the private equity industry and the investment management industry. You are already seeing that CFTC just gave permission for Bitcoin futures and so on. So very soon, if securities market is introduced to blockchain to tokenize securities, very soon you will be having exchange traded funds, mutual funds, everything on tokenized securities. So that's the next big market, which is trillions of dollars again, which will be next in queue. So I believe this has a really big disruptive potential, and we are calling it Capital Coin, because Capital Coin lets you raise capital from anywhere borderlessly, globally. And it's the first cryptocurrency that deals with real securities. So far you've only dealt with tokens and coins, but this will deal with real securities, which is stocks and bonds. And its scope is global, across every single industry, across every single geography, across every single class of investor and every single class of entrepreneur or issuer. So this platform would be useful for anybody who wants to raise capital, and that's pretty much the whole population. So in terms of impact, first came Bitcoin, which was unstoppable cash. So it was a paradigm shift that shook the foundations of banks and financial institutions, regulators, governments like China. Now India is talking that cryptocurrencies are illegal and so on. Next came trust minimized smart contracts, trust minimized computing by Ethereum. Both of them are the biggest superstars because they were pioneers and they were the foundation layers. Then came the ICOs in hundreds, and ICOs have completely and irreversibly disrupted venture capital industry within a short span of time and within the scope of just blockchain industry, not any other. And then comes trust minimized issuance of securities, which is what DigiCamp wants to do. So I think in terms of legacy, this would be a landmark invention and landmark protocol and platform which will change the way we do business. And this would be really taking finance to mainstream. This would be really putting the power of decentralization in the hands of every single person on earth. And we have a team, and I want to have at least 30 to 50 people before the ICO. So I'm building a global team. I have been on a global tour for the past 4 months relentlessly. I've gone everywhere from China to South Korea to Brussels to Kyiv to Mexico and Istanbul and India. I've given talks everywhere. Almost for 4 months, every single day I have given a talk at a new city. Thousands of people have heard my talks and they're enthused and passionate and they believe in it and they want to join this. And even amongst the worst critics, I've not heard anyone say that this is not the future. They criticize me, but they say, we know that this is the future. So, who is stopping the future? Somebody has to create it for the future to come, right? So, and someone has to take the risk of the adventure, to embark on it and to create it and to give you the future. And luckily that's me. And at one of my talks, somebody asked me, what's your motivation? I told them, I have been lucky enough to research blockchain for many years and to be in close association with the crypto founders like Vitalik. And luckily, I have fortunately found myself in the position where I can create this landmark thing and perhaps be counted in terms of impact alongside these legends. And what more could I ask for? So I'm not creating a CryptoKitty or another blockchain application. This is going to be legendary. So first came unstoppable cash, Bitcoin, unstoppable computing, Ethereum, and I want to create unstoppable capital, which is DigiCamp. We are still deciding on the name. Thank you for your attention.
Wow.
Ellen, did you enjoy that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Farah. Oh, I'm really impressed by his informative delivery. And I think, the decentralization solution is the best way to avoid credit fraud.
Well, it's all new to me. I'm here to learn. That's my goal, is to learn a little more, and the speakers have been excellent, and I understand this afternoon will even be more excellent, if you can imagine that. So be sure to come back. I think we're getting ready to take a lunch now. I hope you enjoyed today, did you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed today, but
Okay.
it's time for us to have some food. But don't forget, we have some real food for spirits. Yeah, for our spirits.
And-
所以此时此刻 I think I have to speak Chinese now.
Go ahead.
Yeah. 那这就是我们今天上午的所有的精彩内容，我们要非常的感谢所有的 speaker， 但是不要忘记了，今天下午呢，我们来自 Hybrid 的团队还会给大家带来更多精彩的内容，所以我们只有4个字，就是不容错过。请大家呢在今天下午的1点30分再一次移步到我们的会场，记住了是1点30分，我们会有非常精彩的干货分享，让大家了解更多的前沿技术，分享我们的精彩话题。
And I would like to say, oh, push it down.
Wow, see you later.
But soon I'll be able to speak that. But we are breaking for lunch right now. Be sure to return this afternoon. And there are some VIPs in the room. We'd like to invite them as the privilege of a VIP to exit first to your lunch. The rest of us will follow your expertise. So let's break for lunch. Enjoy. Come back rested, awake, ready for an exciting afternoon.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. And it's time for lunch.
Thank you very much.